jobs. They're critical to our country, and they're critical to our local and regional economy. So it's not only retaining younger people in New Hampshire, but it's also making this line of work appealing to them in some way.
I agree. I think the it needs to be framed a little bit differently. People still think, I think, of the old, mill jobs, perhaps in Manchester and other, surrounding towns where you see pictures of, people coming out, sooty faces and, filthy clothes and everything. But it's, you're right. It's more likely to be in a clean environment, working on a computer, than it is, banging a hammer or working at a forge or something like that.
I visit a lot of these facilities as part of my work, and you'd be amazed how often I need to put on one of those robes or jackets, whatever they are.
Lab coats.
As I walk through, or signing in because it's a defense-related facility.
Right.
So there's an awful lot of that up there. So I think that, frankly, I think more efforts are underway to address that issue than our energy issue. The community college system, especially in New Hampshire, has really taken the lead in going to business, going to the manufacturing sector and saying, what do you need? What can we do to help you find the types of workers that you need to have? So a lot of partnerships have been created that way, and I think that's a tremendous step. We're seeing it a little bit more at lower grade levels. As you may know, the West Side High School has a program now called STEAM. So they've taken what we call STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and they've inserted A for arts in the middle to call it STEAM. And they're taking young people and trying to get them interested in technology-related careers. The FIRST program, Dean Kamen's program, does a tremendous job getting into the lower levels. By the time kids get to high school, it might be too late to really interest them in those types of jobs for the future. So it has to start early.
Yeah, we're seeing it here in Derry as well. At Pinkerton Academy has a very robust CTE program, Career and Technical Education, that's really, I think, you're responsive to the needs of business, and you're really planting that seed and helping to train the workers of tomorrow. So we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges: energy, demographics, perhaps perception of some of our manufacturing industries. What are our pluses when you talk to potential lessees of commercial or industrial space? What do they like about this area?
Our greatest asset are our natural resources in New Hampshire. New Hampshire derives a lot of income from the tourist business. We can't be full-time tourists, but the resources are here. One thing that drew me to the Londonderry area, where I lived for a long time, was the reality that I was only an hour's drive from the ocean, from the mountains, or from Boston, via some pretty good highway systems. I think that we have a very well-educated workforce here. I wouldn't put the climate, number one, on the list of attributes for the area, especially after this last winter that we had.
We're all trying to forget that.
But there are a lot of people that like the change of seasons, and there are people who really enjoy skiing and other outdoor sports during the winter. I live in Auburn. Lake Massabesic is covered year-round with people who avail themselves of that opportunity. There are some people who can't wait for the ice to come, and other people who can't wait for the water to be available to boat in. So we have those resources, we have the educated workforce, and I think just that proximity that we have to the ocean and to Boston. And I think the proximity to Boston is really critical. I know it is to me. I want access to a world-class city, and I do consider Boston to be that. I think that it's important for New Hampshire to do whatever it can to maintain the connection to Boston for a whole slew of reasons, but getting there to take advantage of what they have there that we don't have here, and allowing people from the Boston area to easily get into New Hampshire and go to the tourist destinations that they like is also very important. So the 93 widening project to me was very, very important. I know it began as a safety issue A couple of commissioners ago, that's all we heard about was 93 is a huge accident waiting to happen. So it was done for safety reasons, but I think it's also important to maintain that connection with Boston.
Agreed, and I know that last year, as a result of the increased gas tax that was passed by the legislature at the time, and of course anything can change with the legislature with regard to funds, but it was said that part of that, in addition to roads and bridges across the state, would be used to complete the expansion of I-93
right.
from exit 3 up to the 293 split.
Yes.
What will that, and I was told by former Commissioner Chris Clement that that would be done on or before 2020. He was saying, assuming everything goes according to plan, what will this mean for this region, which just this area, which has exits 3, 4, and 5? What will it mean for us?
I frankly view it more as a safety factor and something that needed to be done to really bring 93 up to modern standards. The road as it was built was not built to accommodate the kind of traffic that has been on it for many, many years. So it's sort of just kind of getting it back to ground zero, if you will. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, certainly you want to have a good highway to allow people to get access to the exits. I think that the development at the exits probably would have happened anyways, but it may have advanced it somewhat. So you're seeing now at exit 5 some additional development. The bus station was built really as part of the 93 widening. Mm-hmm. They wanted to get people out of their cars off 93 so they could build it and use buses instead. From my vantage point, that park and ride facility has been an incredible success. But now you're seeing a little more development taking place there. The former Sunoco station has now become a highway type rest area with the Red Arrow mm-hmm. and the State Liquor Store. So I think we will continue to see that sort of thing happen where there's land available, and there is more land at exit 5.
I think that will be in the next 10 or 15 years. It seems that's kind of maybe a boom might be a little bit of a strong word, but yes. I think we'll see a lot of exciting developments going on around there. Yeah, and not only 93, but the infrastructure has been in place for some time. You have water, sewer, natural gas, items that are really, really critical for development. They are already in place up there. I'm curious, given your kind of unique vantage point and just kind of historical perspective here in the region, what advice would you give those here in the region, both kind of maybe at the municipal level and also maybe the citizen planning level and different other venues with regard to things that we all can do, and maybe from a chamber perspective too, to improve both our commercial real estate prospects and overall economic development mm-hmm. prospects? Well, I'm a big believer in being authentic, being true about yourself, and I think that it's important that we bring attention to the resources and the attributes that we have in the area. I travel every now and then, and it's amazing to me when I go to different places, they'll have bus tours or some type of tours pointing out attributes that particular area has. This area is incredibly historical. We have so many historical resources. We have natural resources. We have animals, and we have that are unique to this area. I think those kinds of things really need to be heightened a bit more. I don't know of any in Manchester, for example. I don't really know of any tours that take place in Manchester. Looking at some of the historical sites there. I mean, the Millyard by itself could probably take up a day-long tour. A few years ago, there were Segway tours in Manchester, mm-hmm. though that doesn't happen anymore. I think Manchester is a big enough city to warrant having that kind of a tour, and I think that the smaller towns can do that as well. So that's sort of from the inside out. From the outside in, I think it's very important, again, to allow the market to speak. In order for that to happen, municipalities have to be as flexible as possible. I know there was a time when zoning sort of created areas and pigeonholed where certain uses could go. And as a general concept, I think that's great, but
it's virtually impossible to write every potential use that might come to an area. Things change over time.
Sure.
And I think that municipalities have to be as open as they possibly can and realize that not every municipality is going to get some kind of a biomedical facility. There's only so many of those to go around. But whatever it might be, work with the businesses and find a way for them to fit into the zoning that you have and the districts that you have. In general, these businesses, especially the larger ones, are looking for you rather than being open to being courted by you. There have been so many examples of towns that have formed committees. I remember in Candia a few years ago, and I don't mean to pick on Candia, but Candia really wanted a supermarket. They wanted a market basket at Exit 3 on 101. And they formed a committee and they started writing letters and contacting every supermarket they could think of. Well, the demographics just don't work at Exit 3 for a supermarket. That was an example of the market speaking. So I know it's difficult to be flexible, and people care very much about the quality of life in their town and the character of their town, and all of that is important, but I just think you have to have as much flexibility as you possibly can.
You mentioned some kind of industrial niches, biomedical, some of the stuff we're seeing out at the airport, kind of warehousing, distribution. Do you see any niches in this area forming or developing now or in the future, or is it still at a pretty general across the board level?
Well, I do think overall it's general, but again, that manufacturing sector, the advanced or smart manufacturing, is very large out there, and that has a tendency to control the kind of space that is required. In the old days, an industrial building would have maybe 10% of office space, and the rest would be open warehouse or production area, and a few loading docks and that sort of thing. Well, today the trend seems to be towards what we call flex buildings, where you have a mix of office, R&D, testing, labs, clean rooms, and then some production space. And for the most part, these are fully air-conditioned buildings because of the kind of work that's going on. We don't have enough of those, and I think we have a very, very robust high-tech business. You're probably familiar with the New Hampshire High-Tech Council. That's a great organization that works to support young businesses as they incubate and grow into something larger. There are an awful lot of entrepreneurs out there, pretty young entrepreneurs, that are very smart and are all looking to create something. So we have to nurture that and have the kind of space available that they need to conduct their businesses.
As we wrap up our conversation here, I was wondering if I might ask you to put on your prognosticator's cap, and what do you think this region, the greater Derry Londonderry region, will look like in 10, 15, 20, 25 years? Where are we going?
Well, first of all, I hope to be around to see if the crystal ball works out. It's really tough, Will, to look into the future. I used to be much more brave and bold in my younger days at looking out at the future. I can guarantee that things will change in some ways. I've come to accept that change is one of the certainties in life. I have my concerns about the future. This demographic issue concerns me quite a bit. There are areas of the country that are growing dramatically faster than we are up here. And as companies decide where to locate, demographics plays a very big role. If we don't have the consumers for retail businesses, if we don't have the workers for manufacturing businesses, we may find ourselves being a hospitality-driven economy. And I'm not sure that's good for our future. I hope that we will always have the natural resources that we have, and that will draw people here. And it's amazing how many companies locate in a particular area because the owner or the CEO of the company either wants to live there or likes it for some reason. So I guess this ties into my thought earlier that it's important for us to always promote the good things that we have here and draw people to those attributes. So again, it's a very difficult question, but it will be different than the way things are today.
The only constant is change, as they say.
That's right.
Well, I believe that kind of wraps up everything that I intended to ask you. Is there anything I didn't ask that you'd like to share or discuss? Loaded question, I know.
There isn't. I think it's great that you're doing this kind of a series. I've known you since your days at the Manchester Chamber and NeighborWorks before that. I think it's good to have these discussions. I hope it'll be beneficial and get people thinking a little bit in the community about some of the issues that you're covering in your roundtable. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you, Dan Scanlon of Colliers International. And I did want to give you one plug before we wrap up. Every Friday, I look forward to an email that I get from you, signed Good News Dan, always talking about some of the great things going on around the state in the commercial real estate world. How can people sign up for that if they'd like to start receiving that email too?
Just send me an email asking to be on the Good News Friday distribution list. Well, great. And I believe that email address will pop up on the screen here. But again, Dan Scanlon, Colliers International, thank you for joining us on Regional Roundtable. And thank you for joining us and watching our program. And we will see you again next month. Until then, so long.